Okay, hey everybody. I'm gonna just finish up where I left off with the tests before I move on, and this will give a few, give people a few minutes to join the stream and get tuned in before we continue. So really, all I'm doing right now is, yeah. So that's dribble. Is going through my template and my show commands, and I'm just backfilling the tests. So really what I'm taking is this new if Webex room code. So if there is if they do have a Webex room in the key in the code, then call this other new function that generates and sends the Webex adaptive cards. So this won't take very long. This is a lot of just copy paste. I was hoping to have this done before we started, but that's okay. So right, so this test is for duplex, interface full duplex, and I'm going to change the name of the function here to duplex, and then we hop into the Jinja, and let's add this. This hopefully won't take too long, and then I'll move on to a brand new command tonight, which is a good place for people maybe who missed my earlier streams, and I'll do something from start to finish. And I may actually, we'll see. We'll see how long and tedious this takes. It's really just copy and paste. So duplex due to half duplex due to half duplex duplex, and let's go to the next command, which is going to be ignored. So again, I'm going to just, yeah, this won't take very long. Let me just finish this up, and then we'll move on to a brand new command I haven't done yet. Ignored. This one is ignored, ignored. And thanks for joining. If you're joining in for the first time, or if if you've been in a couple of these streams, we're making pretty good progress here. And we're going to copy this. And these again are for the Webex adaptive cards. So not only are we testing if there is a failure, it's reporting the failure, but it's also generating a Webex message with an adaptive card so that we have instant real-time alerts. And I've made the column a little better. I've included the host name now, so that is new. Ignored. And if. And once I see a few more people in the stream, like I said, I'll jump over to the new down interface drops. I'll jump over to the new code. Down IF drops. Down IF drops. ignored. Hey, my mind madness, how's it going? Thanks for joining. I can switch up and start the new code now that I got somebody actually tuned in here. Let me just finish this last templated here. I was kind of waiting. Down interface drops. 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 Awesome, awesome. You got some new infographics coming out. I just love that work you do on those infographics. They're just awesome. No worries, no worries. I'll move on. Let me, I'm hopefully be able to get through this pretty quick and then start working on some new code. So I'm just going to keep going on these and finish up where I left off last night. Okay, let me finish this one up. I've got some people watching and we'll do something brand new like I said we would. Hey, Steven. Hey, thanks for joining. I'm just finishing up a couple. I'll actually probably stop this and do something brand new so we can kind of see input discards. Input discards. Input. Whoops. I'll just do this last one and then we'll start with something brand new and fresh. And let me just run this through a round of tests before I move ahead. So down interface drops. And this one is input discards. Input discards. Input discards. And then let me just run this through a round of tests and then we'll do something new. Input discards. That'll also give you a chance to see what these new adaptive cards are looking like. Okay, so first we got to fake some bad data. So, right, let's give some of these some errors. So 5 babbles, 3, 7, 8, 4, 6, and let's make this half duplex. 7, 10, 12. And that's as far as I got. I'll finish up the rest of these later. I don't want you to just watch me do copy and paste for people joining. So I've faked it that this is a pretty bad interface, or this interface is in pretty bad shape. Faking bad interface. And then we're going to run our tests against it. And in this room, let me just address some of these other messages just to get rid of that. So now let's try this tests. And I should get a bunch of Webex notifications now because I have a bunch of templated Webex messages. So we'll let that run. And then let's take a look in the room here. So I got are these new? I should maybe add a timestamp to these. Let's just run that again. I'm expecting more. Do I have any messages in here? Right, so I should have, I didn't get to output errors. Let's look at the summary report. And unfortunately, my Webex is noisy. So let's look at the summary report and see what's been passing and sent here. So, Babbles, CRC check. Did this not push? Oh, that's why. Okay, sorry. Ha! False positive. I didn't sync my changes to GitHub. All right, so let's try this again. Let's try this again. Yeah, I didn't actually push the code to GitHub. So now let's watch this live. I just want to test that I get a Webex adaptive card for all of those errors. So there's, and we'll come back and, so here they come in, right? And I've done some adjustments since last night's stream. And this looks really good now. And they are all working. I didn't get any errors. So, right, if any port has Babbles, and now I've added the switch name, so a failure on switch, the port due to Babbles, the host name, and the Babbles, bad Ethernet, bad protocol, collisions, CRCs, dribble, half duplex, ignored, down interface drops, link not connected. So I will finish the rest of those interface Webex alerts later. But let's go ahead and do a new command, and I'll show you kind of the start to finish process here. So I'm going to minimize my tests, and let's go into the main code. So what we're going to need to do, and I'll show you where this is going to come from. So we're going to need a new command in our list of supported templated commands. What I want to do is I'll go into Python and I'll show you the command. So from CLI import star CLID show system resources. This is going to be the command, whoops, I typed that in wrong, CLID. This is the JSON that we're going to push and template. So, right, so let me go ahead and add that to well, first, anyway, I'm a little bit out of sorts here. We're going to go here and we're going to add it to our list of commands here. So show system resources. And then, you know, nothing else changes in here. This is all remains the same. But what I need to do is go into the templates and add it to, right, if the command equals show system resources. But first we need the JSON payload, which I can do right now from my code. Right, so nxpydocs command is show system resources to JSON. Let's grab the Git repo because I don't have these as environment variables right now. So let's grab the Git repo. And it's automate your network. And then I need to get my token, which again, I will cycle my token at the end of this session, so that token's no good. And this is going to push the JSON up to GitHub. So it clones in the repository, runs that command, git add star the JSON output file, git push it back up to Git repo. And there you can see I have the switch show system resources JSON. So now what we're going to do is pull the code down, and we should have a new file. And there it is. So this is the IC, and the CPU usage must be per CPU. And I guess user is in the kernel. I guess these three will add up to 100. I have to do the math and see if that's true or not. I think they should all equal 100. And then I have the CPU idle, state kernel, state user. Current memory is okay. So these are some things we can test against, right? The averages, the buffers, the cache, the free total used, processes running, processes total, VM free, VMRAM total. So let's go ahead and template this into business ready documents. The other thing I can do, well, the YAML will work as well. So I could push this up as YAML if I ran that same code. It said show system resources YAML to the GitHub repository as automate your network. And I gotta grab that key again. And now if I refresh the repository when that's done, it'll just take a second here, I will have the YAML version of this. So this is good, and this is something we can actually test against. So we can say, you know, if state kernel plus state user, if state idle divided by kernel and user added to each other is greater than, let's say, 75% or 80% or something, fail the test. Same as memory, right? If total, if total divided by used, or if free is less than a certain value, right? We can come up with some math tests to see what's going to pass or fail. So let's pull down the YAML, and there is the YAML version. So now what we want to do is make the data, the business ready versions of these files. All right, so we're not using tests just yet. We're going to go into the main code. And we're going to add a command here. So in alphabetical order, it's going to be above show version. So if command equals show system resources, else, and if. So let's get our headers from the JSON. So I don't know how many CPUs it's going to have, and we already have the total data down here. So it's really, let's just take this and make it our header row. And this is, I find this the easiest way to do this. Is to just get rid of the data values. And again, everything else, all the other templates will be based off of the CSV file. And then, you know, we'll do some find and replace. I guess I could maximize this now for now. Right, replace that with CPU space. Load space. idle, state kernel, state user, current memory status, load average for 15 minutes, load average for 1 minute, and load average for 5 minutes. Memory buffers, memory cached, memory usage free, memory usage total, memory usage used, processes running, processes total, VM free, VM total. Okay, so that is our header row. And there's no for loop here. This is going to be that same data copied. And what we're going to do is we're going to replace the, let me do it this way. And this might seem long, but just wait. I'm going to do a find replace. I'm just making it easier for me to do a find replace. And there's not a lot of fields, so this one will go pretty quickly actually tonight. And this one will be a really good one in a spreadsheet as well. And it'll also really make a good data set for something like Grafana down the road. Okay, so now what I can do is find that and replace it with data to template dot. And then find the colon and replace that with space colon colon, and I already have the comma that I need. So then let's get rid of that extra space at the end. And there we go. That is the CSV file. So now what we can do is run. So I have to package this up. So I'm pretty confident that's going to work, but let's just repackage this and make sure that that's going to be okay before I proceed. So let me just activate my virtual environment, go into NXPyDocs and say poetry version patch, poetry version build. Let me get rid of my old build and let me increment this number here to 3. Sorry, it's just poetry build, not poetry version build. Poetry build, poetry publish using a token, and let me get my token for PyPy. And then back in here, we're going to say pip install nxpydocs-u. And rerun the nxpydocs with show system resources to a CSV file. To my GitHub repo. No, wrong key. And in theory, we should have a nice spreadsheet of the system resources in the Git repo. So this will just take a second to run. And then we'll do all the other file types once I've confirmed the CSV is good, and repackage it and do this one more time. Okay, so no, that's why I'm testing it. There's something wrong. What's wrong with my Jinja 2? Show, oh, I have a space here. Maybe that's my problem. Show system resources. That's a weird error, but I think that was my problem, is I had a space there. So let me patch it, build it, publish it. It's the only thing I can think of is that I put a space in there by accident. It's always something, little mistake here. So let's pull down the code. And run it again. Show system resources to a CSV file, to this Git repo, using my username and using my key. No, what's the problem here? Line 4 in the template. It's like it's on a different iteration here. Item.loopin, and I don't know why. Got interval 1rx. I don't understand why this is so line 4. It's like tripping here in this, and I don't know why. It shouldn't even be hitting that. The command is show system resources. I'm hitting a weird error here. I don't quite understand why, because I was just templating this stuff earlier with all. Else if command equals equals. Show system resources. Let's take a look at the error again here. So expand of print statement got interval rx1. Okay, so that is a problem here. See this space here? That's what it's tripping up on. Oh, I think when I did my find replace, maybe. Yeah, I've screwed this up when I did my find replace. So let me back out of that. So it really is an error, and I've broken this. So let me undo. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to redo all that. And then I'm just going to look at my version control and see what it thinks has changed in this file. And yeah, use the version control to help me here. So let's take the old line and replace this. I'm just curious, what did I break? I got rid of an underscore. That's weird. Okay, so that's definitely what the problem was. Sorry for the little hiccup there. And I'm going to be up to version 1.5 here. Do it again. Got to be careful with the find replace. Obviously that wasn't my intent. And let's try this one more time. NXPyDocs show system resources to CSV and actually let's cancel this and do something else. Export repo equals export username equals export token equals, and this will just save me a lot of typing because I don't plan on leaving the guest shell tonight. So now I can just do NXPyDocs show system resources to CSV. Show system resources to CSV. And we should be error free this time. No, it got name. Where is it getting name from? What line here? Line 25. Line 25. I'm not having great luck with my Jinja tonight. Line 25. Something in my replace here, I know I can see where the CPU name is. Right here. Something in my find replace did not go great here. And that's under show version. Should be CPU name. Are there any other spaces in here? Weird, very weird. I don't know. I really don't know why these spaces are being introduced. But anyway, that's the way sometimes development goes. We have little hiccups here, little happy mistakes, as Bob Ross would say. But now that I've exported the show system resources to a CSV file. Oh, I know. It was when I was replacing CPU and memory and stuff. Yeah, okay. That's what happened. Okay, so now if I go to my output and I check the CSV folder and I pull down the repo, I have nothing. Because why? Because of my if statement in the Jinja 2? Yeah. I put the space in the wrong place. Wow, I'm off to a pretty rocky start here tonight, but that's okay. That's okay. We will get back on track any second now. Happy little trees. Yes, exactly. Happy little mistakes. It's the way it goes. I don't have any explanation. I've made a couple of very simple mistakes to get started here. So show system resources to a CSV file. And so I had some find replace mistakes, definitely replaced the wrong things. This is a very simple misplaced space. So there we go. Okay, so now if I go to my output and refresh it, there is what I was after. And if I look at it as a spreadsheet, we have this really nice human readable CSV file of the system resources state. So now let's do the other business ready templated output file types. And this is going to be easy, I promise you. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take the else and the if. Hey Potato, thanks for joining. Appreciate you coming on board. Thanks for hopping in. I've been off to a pretty rocky start so far, but we're just going to deal with it. We're going to be okay. So then here after the else, we're going to put that in. We're not going to forget to add our end if. Wrong Gmail account. Hey, that's okay. That's okay. You're coming in your sock account. That's fine. So then we're going to say show system resources as a title. Add a pipe, add a pipe, add a pipe, add a pipe. Carefully find the comma and replace it with pipe space pipe. And do this all the way to the end. And I'm going to go slower as I get to the end here. Okay, so now all of our commas are replaced. Good. And then I need a delimiter row. And again, there's no for loop here because it's a straight dictionary. It's not an array or a list. So we're going to add the delimiter here. This is a little tedium. This does take a bit of time to get all the delimiters added. But this way we'll get a nice markdown table of the data, and this will go up on GitHub and look nice on GitHub. And VS Code with the Markdown Preview extension is the one I use. Okay, so that's ready to go. But let's just do all the accounts or all the files. So we're going to copy that same CSV and we're going to go into the HTML and we're going to go to the bottom here, and after that else add the end if, and we're going to steal a little bit of code here. So I usually just take the header, the table header, the table row, add that in there and call this show system resources. Right, tab that in and give it a table header / table header, end the table row, and then we're going to end, right, we're just going to copy again here. steal that code. And this is a new table row with TD instead of TH. End the table row, end the table body, end the table. And then again, we're going to find and replace the comma here carefully with /th, shift enter to give us the multi-line. And then when it gets down here, change these to TD, TD. And that's it. So that should be the HTML. And then for the HTML, we can either copy this, but I like to copy in this. And since I know it's not a loop, I don't need any loop information. Go to the mind map and add our end if, find our else, say if command equals show system resources, else, paste that in. So then we're going to have one that says show system resources, and we're going to get rid of our HTML tags. Get rid of our HTML tags. And we're safe to add at least 2. And in this case, I think we can add 3. And then what we're going to do is say CPU state. And this one's going to be idle kernel user. This one I guess is only going to be 2. Actually, you know what, let's take this one and move it under memory. And then we're going to say load averages 15 minute. And actually, let's do them from 15 to 5 to 1. 5 minute, 1 minute. And then we can do memory. I'm fat fingers tonight. Memory, so buffers, cached. And let's take that status and make that the first one. So status, and then what we're going to do is usage and make these 4 and have free total used, processes running, actually processes running total VM free and total. Okay, unless I've goofed, and I don't think I have, we should be able to bump up the version number, build, so version patch, build, and before I publish, let's just flush out those old builds. Oh, build, publish. Then I should be done with this repo for now, because this is the documentation generator, not the tester or the Webexing. So let's test it. if this is good, we'll commit that code up to GitHub. So show system resources, all files. And I don't think we're going to hit any snags yet. Okay, good. So now that I know that's good, let's commit this. Show system resources added. Yeah, I deleted the branch. More templates, I think I called it. More underscore templates. Crap. Oh, delete that. More templates. I never use spaces. I should have got that right. All right, so then let's push that in. Pull that code in. Added show system resources. And I'll just leave this branch open because I've been developing under that branch. So merge that in. And okay, so then we're all done with that code, and we're basically all done with the sandbox. So now let's move into the tests. So what we're going to do is we're going to, because it's not a loop, what we're going to do is write tests based off of the show version check. So what we can do is just take, right, version check, version Webex. So let's take that and copy the whole thing here. And let's paste it here as a new class. And this one we're going to call it system check, or let's call it show system resource check. How about resource check? So to continue with the resource check, we're going to have to get that resources from GitHub first. So up here I have get show version. So we're going to copy this and we're going to call it get show system resources, right? And if show system resources is in the item.name, register show system resources as the raw JSON and return show system resources. So now back to our tests, we can start testing it, right? So instead of get show version, we're going to have get, I already forget what I called it, show system resources. I should have called it, yeah, get show system resources to get the JSON. And then let's take a look at the payloads and see what we could test. So if we go to the JSON show system resources, and let me do something real quick. So, right, I believe these values all equal 100. And so really we want to say if kernel plus user is greater than, so let's just make sure, right? So 57.21 plus 13.91 plus 28.86. So almost 100. So what we could say is if kernel and user is greater than, I don't know, what do you want to say for CPU? 85% of CPU? or even if idle is less than 15, then fail the test. That might be the better one, is to say if the state idle is less than 15, right? So for over 85% of state idle, fail the test. So let's make that our first test. So we're going to say, for the name of the test, CPU state idle, and the CPU state idle threshold is going to be 15. Right? So then failed CPU state idle, load, not self.version.info, and actually let me change this version info to be system resources. So load system resources, and if self.system resources, well, I guess I don't have to call this, and let's not call this JSON version, JSON system resources. So self.CPU state idle, I shouldn't call it that. Let's just call it CPU state. So for that key, load it as CPU state. And then if self.CPU state, append the host name, append the state, and if the state is less than or equal to the threshold, right? Fail it and call in, make it failed idle equals self.CPU state. And then this is going to be CPU state idle, and then failed CPU state, run the failed CPU state idle check, and then if there's a Webex room, run the failed CPU state idle Webex, and for the failed message, say the CPU idle state is less than 15%. If it passes, we can say the CPU idle state is greater than 15%. Actually, we can say less than or equal to 15%. So then our version check is actually called failed CPU idle check, and our Webex title is the Webex one. So then if self.CPU state and our threshold here, I think I already have the, where's my threshold? Threshold of 15, and if the CPU state is less than or equal to, no, yes, wait, if it's greater than or equal to, then skip it and say CPU idle state is greater than 15%, else fail it and say the CPU idle state is self.cpu state, and the threshold is the threshold. And then we repeat this same thing here for the Webex message. If CPU state is greater than or equal to the threshold, skip it with this message. Else, now I need a new template here, so we're going to call it failed CPU. Actually, we're just going to call it failed system resources. So I need to make this new file. And I'll come back to that file. And adaptive card, all this stuff looks good. We want the host name, and then instead of version, we can call it, I want something generic, right? So version was from the show version, so we can just call this resource equals self.state CPU, and the test here is CPU idle state. And everything else should be the same. So I need this idle state in my here to say if, test. If test equals CPU idle state, and let me just grab a show version Webex adaptive card. So NXPydex has detected a host name because the CPU idle state is at resource. Because the CPU idle state is at resource, and then host name, and here we're going to have it say CPU idle state. I might need to make the width of this column longer. 3, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. No, that should be okay. And then the resource. This data comes from the show system resources command on the host name, and the rest is gravy. Okay, so let's save it. Now let's save it. And let's dummy up a failed test here. So let's make this, well, let's run it in the past state. Hey, Tez, no problem. I appreciate, thanks for joining. I owe you the thanks. Thanks for coming and tuning in. Hey, Steven, no problem. Long train journey, wow. Okay, so hang on. Oh, I know why. Something failed because I'm evaluating against a string and not an integer. Yeah, I should have known that. So, lines 214, 242, 249. 214, this should be an integer version of that. I lost it. So an integer version, and an integer version. Stephen, you might have to remind our American friends what a train is. we have them in Canada. I don't know that they use trains a whole lot down in the States. They fly everywhere or drive. Okay, so let's see here. Now this should be a pass test and I shouldn't get a Webex. I thought I just saved it. It's still complaining. String and an integer, but they should both be integers. Can I just do this? Say the integer version of that string. My threshold is already, oh, I put the integer on the wrong thing. That's my mistake. But I think that will fix it universally. Is just when I say the equals. Yeah, I got that backwards. I should have put the integer in front of the self CPU state. Or anyway, it doesn't matter. I think that will fix it if I say the integer of the JSON. Invalid literal for integer with a base 10. Oh, it can't be an integer. It has to be a float. Yeah. So here, instead of an integer, that needs to be a float. Oh well. That's okay. This will work this time, I believe. Yes, okay, so that's passing. I saw it quickly go by that it passed. And I'm going to get some Webex messages in my room from my other tests. So, so what I should do is clean up that data. So let me do that. Let me clean up the data. So I'm gonna have to come out of guest shell real quick. Show in status. I think interface 4 is no shut, or yeah. So conf t in eth14 shut. Guest shell. Whoops. Guest shell. NX pydocs show actually all commands, all files. And I do really appreciate everybody joining and tuning in. And you know, it's I'm going to be doing this development anyway, so the way I look at it is I might as well stream it and get ideas, 2, share my ideas, 3, it's kind of like mob programming, in that if you spot an error or if you have an idea or a better way to do something, I get that feedback directly from you. So that's sort of my philosophy, is why I'm streaming this. I have no problems making mistakes or looking stupid or feeling stupid. I don't feel stupid. I am going to make mistakes. I'm very open about that. I am just a human. But okay, Sheridan, no problem. The recording of the full session will be available. I appreciate you joining. It's nice for you to be tuned in. And have fun with the swimming practice. Hope your kids are well. So now, come on. Right, I'm running 5 commands. So this is, the delay here is going to get longer and longer as I'm doing more and more commands. Nothing failed. And now let's rerun our tests. And actually, just to confirm, you can see now that I have the resource check and the CPU idle state is passing. So let's refresh our output here. And let me, all right, so, no, You'll get there, Stephen. It's just a matter of practice and time and effort. So instead of all of these Webex messages, let's just dummy up the CPU time. So let's pretend we're down to 5.56 CPU in idle. And I have to remember to push this up. Faking bad CPU idle. And save that change. Now, in theory, this test here, CPU idle should fail. It should run the idle check instead of saying skipped. And then it should say failed. And then the Webex should say passed. And I should get a nice Webex adaptive card telling me that the CPU is less than 15%. There's the failure. So I saw the failures in red. And did I get a nice adaptive card? No, I did not. Why did I not get an adaptive card? Because I have a space here. I keep doing that to myself. Okay, let's try it again. I keep adding an unnecessary space after the... Anyway, Jinja is taking the literal and looking for something with a space there. At least that's my assumption as to why I didn't get a Webex adaptive card. And there we go. Webex on this switch because the CPU idle state is at 5.56. Now, I think that is just as valuable as knowing that an interface is down, right? That layer 1 health of the device is CPU pinned at 99%, as there's some runaway process chewing up our CPU. So that's sort of why I'm doing this. Now, let's look at what else we can test and notify on. Okay, so that's great. That is really good. So we sort of have handled CPU. Let's do current memory status. And that's going to be a string. And that's going to be a nice easy test if it does not equal OK. And then same for load. We can test each of these loads and say, is it greater than 85? And my wife is home. Hello, wife.
Hello.
How did everything go? Can I help you with anything?
No.
Okay. So we're going to take the full copy of what we've just done here. Oh, and I got to change this comment here. Test for CPU idle is less than 15%. It's greater than 15%. So we're going to take this test, and now we sort of are in the realm of copy and paste, to be honest with you, which is a good place to be. So now our next test is going to be current memory status equals OK. So we'll just call this one memory status. And the memory status threshold is OK. And instead of CPU state, current memory status, and that's not a float. And then current memory status, failed current memory status. So if current memory status does not equal the threshold, fail it and run the failed current memory status. equals current memory status. And the table is going to be current memory status. If failed, run the check, run the Webex, and while I'm in here, we're going to copy that, paste that, copy that, paste that, and then the current memory status is not okay. Past the current memory status is okay. And I'm just going to take this whole thing, threshold, 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 and if it skips, we're going to say current memory status is okay. Otherwise, the current memory status is, and I need to change this here. Right, hang on. Current memory status equals the threshold, the memory status threshold, memory status equals the threshold. We're going to skip it, say current memory status is okay. The test here is current memory status, and that is basically that test. So now we hop into the Webex and copy this whole thing, and add an else, add an end if, and say if current test is, if the test equals current memory status has detected a failure on because the current memory status is blank, because the current memory status is blank, memory status is okay. Okay, so now we can, so let's do it with a pass test. And actually let's go back and put the memory, the CPU idle back up. Normal CPU idle. And rerun our tests. So we shouldn't get any Webex adaptive cards, and the memory test should pass. So all of our tests pass, and right, good, right? Or is something still failing? Interface error check. Right, and I haven't got that templated yet. I should clear counters and get rid of that error. But anyway, that aside. So now let's, double check. So I don't know what the other, right, we could just say error or not okay. I don't know what it's actually going to say on the device. Faking memory error. And now we should get a Webex card that says that memory status has failed. there's the error. Good. And I should already have the Webex. And I do. Current memory status. Oh, hang on. It shouldn't be 88.2. That's a mistake. So I've missed something in my code here. I'm still using CPU state somewhere. Here, resources, self.current memory status. So, yeah, I just passed the wrong thing into the Jinja 2. I missed that on my copy replace right here. I left the resource I'm sending into the Webex card. So now, write status is error. Okay, good. Okay, so let's take a look and see what else we can test. So there's the different load averages. And then there's the memory usage free and total and used. So we can do the different load averages. And then I'm thinking for memory usage free, I don't know that I want to use a number here for free. I think what I want to do is total minus used, or total divided by used, and whatever the percentage is that's left over if it's less than a certain value. But let's do the load averages. So we're going to copy that last test. And we're going to do test for 15-minute load average. And now this is going to be another float. So here I'm going to say float no, wrong place. Hang on. So failed 15-minute average, self dot 15-minute average equals float and that 15-minute average. Self dot 15-minute average, self dot 15-minute average. Can I know? Oh, I can't start it with a number. Is that what's going on here? I guess I could just call it minute average. I don't need to add the 15, and that'll be less copy and paste when I do the other averages. So if self 15-minute or self minute average, and I'm going to have the minute average threshold is 85.00. I guess I could just say 85. And if the minute average is greater than or equals to the 15-minute average, self dot failed minute average equals minute average. And then our table is going to be 15-minute average, failed minute average, failed minute average check, failed minute average Webex. The current 15-minute average load is greater than 85%. The current 15-minute average load is under 85%. And again, people may have to adjust what they want these thresholds to be. I think 85 is pretty high. You're running pretty hot there if your 15-minute average of load is greater than 85%. So current minute average is greater than or equal to the threshold. No, less than or equal to, skip it. Otherwise, fail it. The current 15-minute load, 15-minute average load. Hey, all right. No, thanks for joining. It's getting pretty late. I appreciate you joining, and you and I are going to have to connect just to meet each other over Webex someday, or over Discord or something like that. So keep up the great work on the CCNA journey. You're really helping a lot of people, Madness. So I know a lot of people are following your work and taking your polls, and I really think you're helping people out. So good for you, and good for the community that you're doing all that great work. And if I'm skipping it, say that. And then here I got to be careful. The minute average, and this is going to be 15-minute load average. And what I'm going to do is, while I'm in here, I'm just going to copy this whole thing and do it for the other two, since it's very minimal copy and paste. So I think the other average is 5 minute and 1 minute. So 5 minute, I think it's just updating the text, really. I don't need to change anything else at all. That's sort of why I was agnostic in the naming. And then here, 5 minute average. And then the whole thing again for the 1 minute average. And then over into the adaptive card. So I'm going to be adding 3 new ifs. End if, end if, end if. Take current memory status, paste it in, and update the text. Failure because the 15-minute average load is blank, because the 15-minute average load is blank. Change this to be 15-minute average load, and I need to make this column wider, right? 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That might fit under 25. Let's just leave it. And then we're going to copy this. Actually, I need to adjust this to say 15-minute load average. And I need an else here. So then we're going to take that whole thing, paste it in, and change that to 5 minute, 5 minute, 5 minute, 5 minute, save that, paste it in one more time, and do 1 minute. 1 minute, 1 minute, save that. Now let's try it, and we shouldn't get any failures. Well, maybe we might get the failure that I staged for memory not okay. And hang on, I did get an error there. Let's try. So let's make that okay and save it and sync it. Mem okay. And I want to see what that error was that I got. I don't know, it's probably already past the screen. Got an error about something not defined. So let's try it again. Line 298. I thought I'd already passed those memory checks. Did I copy and paste something wrong here? Current memory status has no attribute current memory status. It's right there. Could not convert string. Oh, hang on. Current memory status. Why is that suddenly failing? Float on. Okay, so that's minute average. That's wrong. Oh, I got a little sloppy in my copy and paste. So I don't know why this one is failing though. Current memory status equals JSON resources current memory status. If self current memory status, then do this stuff. If self failed current memory status. If self I think maybe that should be failed current memory status. Let me just check one of my other tests that is working. It's like my Babel test. Or my version tests. I'm not quite sure why this one's not working. I've got a little bit sidetracked with the dogs. Like CPU is working and I'm doing the same thing. So I just, if self current memory status equals memory status threshold, current memory status is not defined. Let's sort out some of these more obvious errors. I'll come back to that one. So 433. The 15-minute average. Yeah, I didn't update the field. 15-minute average. That should be 1 minute average. That should be 5 minute average. That should be 15 minute average. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, so my average checks are going. I'm gonna have to do a side by side with my working one. I'm not sure what is quite wrong. I have some slight simple mistake somewhere on this memory check. $298 and $305. So let's split the screen and let's get the working CPU test up. And then let's get our memory check up and see what I've got wrong here. Table data, failed current, system resources equals current memory status equals the system resources current memory status. I don't quite see, like I'm doing a float here, but it's just a string. If current memory status, so that is working. So this if is not working because I'm not getting the log table info. But I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Current memory status. Current memory status. JSON system resources. System resources. Let me just print something here. I thought for sure I already had that working though, the memory check. Right there, current memory status. I don't quite know why this is not working. It's clearly there. I'm clearly missing something obvious. Self.current memory status equals JSON resources current memory status. Current memory status. Okay, hang on. It's like this function is not working. Because like none of this is happening. It's jumping right into the failed memory check. Let me rewrite it. I mean, it's going to seem like overkill, but I can't quite see what I'm doing wrong here. So let's rewrite that section of code. So define this as current memory status and current memory status threshold equals OK. Self.failed current memory status. And it's not a float, and we're not going to call it current memory status equals, we're going to call it memory status. Is that what I've done? No, I don't think so. And that equals current memory status. Memory status. Memory status. If memory status does not equal the threshold, fail it and run the failed current memory status equals memory status. Current memory status. Current memory status is okay. Otherwise, template it, get the resources, and what did I call this? Current memory status. And the resource should be memory status. Okay, let's try this again. I don't know what I broke there or what I got wrong, but it doesn't hurt to rewrite it quickly. And now it's passing. So there was some mistake in there somewhere. And here's the current memory status is passed. So then CPU state idle, current memory status idle. What about my averages? Oh, it's because I didn't, oh, I know why. I didn't rename the definitions here. Geez. So this should be 15-minute average load. All that work, and it's just because I had a duplicate function name. Yeah, triplicate function name. Ha! Anyway, you live and learn. When I did my copy paste, I did not rename all of my other functions, so then it was confused. Okay, let's run this again. And then I'm going to wrap things up after I just test the failure. Now, there's still more to do, and I'll pick up tomorrow night. But for now, I'm going to wrap things up after I test the pass-fail of the averages. But we still have things like the memory total divided by used and the percentage that renders. We still have to test that. So now I should have the 15-minute, 5-minute, 1-minute. Okay, so now let's fail all of those. 88, 88, 88. Right. Dummy load average fail test. And now I should get 3 Webex adaptive cards. So I'm going to get 3 failed average load adapt tests here. So I should see some red in my logs. There's 1, 2, 3. And let's take a look at the logs here. So the 15-minute failed. So the 15-minute average load failed. The 5-minute passed. So the 5-minute test and the 1-minute tests are bad. So it looks like I'll only get 1 adaptive card, and I did. Oh no, hang on. 15-minute, 5-minute, 1-minute. But the tests should have failed. Oh no, so the 1-minute, see the 1-minute says it passed and the 5-minute says it passed. That's inaccurate, so I have to take a look at what I've done here. The 15-minute is fine, and my Webexes are all fine, but it's the test itself. Hang on, let me just take another look here. 15-minute average load failed. And this should say, instead of idle, that should say load. But this one looks like it passed the 5-minute, and it should not have passed. Right here. Right, that should say 5-minute average. And then again for the 1 minute, that should say load. And my failed 1 minute average okay, let's try that one more time. Now the Webex was all fine, but I was evaluating, it was saying pass there, and it shouldn't have passed, it should have failed. So I should get 2 more reds, right, good, and then 2 more reds, good. So now we're actually testing that layer 1 of the device and alerting on it. So if memory or CPU or average load spikes, we're going to get failed tests, failed, 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 and the Webex adaptive cards. So let's go ahead and push this code in. Actually, hang on. Let's get rid of the cache and push this in as system show system resource tests. Now it's not quite done. We still have a few more to we still have some more tests to add tomorrow, but we'll add those tomorrow. So thanks for joining the stream, everyone. The recording will be available on YouTube. And tonight was kind of fumbling around, but